Okay, I think I might have figured this out. Hey everybody, Tekking101 here, how you doing? And welcome to my discussion video on Basil Hawkins. We're almost done with the worst generation, guys. I know, that went by a lot faster than I thought of. All we gotta do is Basil and then Beige, and I'm gonna wait until the end of this arc to talk about Beige, because I think we might still manage to squeeze at least a little bit more of character development out with him before we end out Totland. But, yeah, for today we're talking about Hawkins, and so I went out of my way, of course, to learn all about the tarot, and I got this set here, and this symbol book. I read all of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders. I got a deck of tarot cards in here, and I did all of that just so I could talk about a relatively minor character in the One Piece story that honestly hasn't done all that much, you know, in the grand scheme of things, and the fact that he has a little character quirk. You know, he reads tarot cards, that's what he does, and even though it doesn't really get referenced all that much. I am one dedicated son of a bitch, you know, like, I didn't have to do this. There was no point. I could have done this entire video without doing this, but I did it because I'm me. Okay, well, I'm just gonna throw the JoJo books back here. Screw it. Backdrop. Okay, so, Basil Hawkins, the mage, the magician, one would say. Okay, so here's the deal with Basil Hawkins, right? When he first showed up, he was one of the supernovas that I really had my eye on, okay? Because his ability was weird, you know, even weirder than the other ones. You know, Apu, okay, his body could turn into instruments. I mean, that's weird, but is it really weird? I mean, if we're being honest with ourselves here, you know, Killer had the gyro death blades. Kid could magnetize things. Like, the ones with the weirdest powers, if we're being straight up, is Law with his Oppi no Mi shit. We had no idea how that worked back then, making a room up and then moving people's body parts around. That was pretty strange. And then Basil Hawkins, who gets light speed kicked from Kizaru into the side of a building and just walks out, and then some voodoo dolls appear from his body and then they die, and then some other people around the island just burst into flames. Now, we understood the basic concept of what he did, you know, okay, he somehow took the damage he received from Kizaru and he influenced them into these voodoo dolls, and these other random people were the ones that took the damage rather than him. And then later on, when he fights Kizaru, he turns into this Gamu no So, demon face, he calls it, this straw-like creature with nails for fingers, and it's just really creepy. So, I mean, the general concept of it is, okay, it's involving voodoo or magic or something like that, and he can turn into like a straw man, so maybe he's you know, a straw paramecia. Kizaru noted that he wasn't a Logia. Some people said that he's some sort of mythical zone creature, you know, but just beyond his devil fruit abilities, which are very interesting, beyond that, he also has this very powerful fortune-telling ability, and we've already seen fortune-tellers in One Piece, although not very many before Basil. We had Madame Charlie, but that wasn't until after Basil appeared. But the way that Hawkins does it is completely different from those other ones. You know, Charlie has her crystal ball. Even now you have Katakuri and Luffy that have observation haki that can see a teensy bit into the future, but the way that Hawkins does this is entirely different. He takes out his cards, which are implied to be tarot cards. I mean, we don't actually get to see them. In the anime, we got to see the death card, which it's pretty much just, you know, thrown in right there, that they're tarot cards. But in terms of the manga, I don't think they've ever been shown, like, you know, face side up. We've only seen them from the back. He has a set of blue cards before the time skip, and he switches to red ones after that. But regardless of what kind of cards they are, most likely tarot, he lays them all out in front of them. He uses his straw devil fruit ability to kind of like make these little strands of straw that he sticks his cards to, like, in front of them, and using that type of fortune telling, he can determine with percentages his chances of succeeding in battle, his chances of defeat, chances of evasion, chances of blocking an attack, you know, if he's gonna die or not is a big one, you know, and through those percentages, that's how he chooses, I guess, to face down against an opponent, or I guess whether or not, I would assume he consults his fortune telling, you know, for everything, you know, like when they're about, Captain, there's an island off to the port. Oh, Captain, there's another island off to the, port and bow. Yeah, off to the bow. I don't know. But he's like, well, okay, well, let me use my terror cards here. And I was like, you know, there's a 25% chance we're going to run into trouble in that island, and there's only a 2% chance it's going to happen on that island. And so, well, based on, you know, whatever, if we're ready for a fight today or not, I guess which island we're going to go to, you know. I would assume he consults these fortune telling with a lot of things. And even when he was facing down a freaking admiral right right up into his grill. Like, Kizaru literally just walks right up to him, you know? I would imagine it's kind of a weird situation for anybody that was watching this go down. You have Basil hanging out in the middle of Sabaody, not really trying to hide or anything, just messing around with his cards, and then Kizaru's walking down the street trying to find, you know, he was summoned there because Luffy punched one of the world nobles, so he's walking down the street, spots Hawkins. Neither of them are really surprised by this. Kizaru's not like, oh, I better take him in, and Hawkins isn't like, oh shit, Kizaru. They just walk up, and he's like, hey, excuse me there, do you know where I could find this guy named Sentomaru? And Basil's he's not even addressing Kizaru, which, okay. So, you gotta give the guy just the massive brass ball award, like, right out of the gate from doing that. Not only does he not run and hide when a Navy Admiral is, you know, sauntering right up to him, but he doesn't even respond when he's being asked a question. You know, usually if it's like, you know, Kizaru walks up to you and is like, excuse me, where can I find... Oh, yeah, it's down the street there, down the street to the left, second door on the right. Yeah, Hawkins is just like, let's see, attack, chance of victory, 0%, evasion, this is this chance, defense, blah, blah, blah. You know, he's just going over the numbers to see what's, you know, possible for him to fight against Kizaru and what would happen if he did attempt to. And then finally, after running out through the numbers and figuring out where he stands, Kizaru basically is just like, well, no, Basil finally responds. He's just like, oh, I don't know who that Sentomaru is, please go ask somebody else. And Kizaru realizes, oh, he knew who he was the whole time. And he's just like, yes, but I can't let you go either. The magician Basil Hawkins with a bounty of 249 million. Now, that's actually something else that caught my eye back then, because 249 million, that was, I think, the third highest bounty right after Kid being number 1 and then Luffy being number 2. I think 249 was right at number 3. Now, since then, he's no longer the third ranked one, because Apu has actually passed him. Apu has 350 million berry bounty, and now I think Hawkins only has 320 million, which is still impressive, higher than Mage's, you know, but still, that's, it's kind of crazy that Apu is the one that passed him up there, because I thought if there was going to be anything big coming from the Supernovas, Hawkins, it would be one of them, you know, it would be Hawkins, or, Kid, obviously, Law. I didn't really put a lot of stock in Apu, but I guess he did something to merit the world government giving him a higher bounty there. So right after that, he's like, well, you know, I can't let you get away, you know, you have such a high bounty. Do you know what it's like to be kicked at the speed of light? And once again, strong, plentiful, 100% brass balls. Hawkins does not flinch from this. He literally just sits there, and Kizaru just kicks him, and there's this scene where it's just Kizaru's foot, and it's just, and he just gets freaking sidelined right into a wall like 100 meters away, and everyone's like, oh my god! And they go up to him, and he's fine. And what that shows you, though, what that shows you is not really so much of his he's completely, like, ignorant to the power of Kizaru. He knows how powerful Kizaru is. It's not that he's ignorant, or it's not like he's stupid or anything. And he's not even like one of those characters that's like, I'm super tough because I'm tough, therefore, you know. No, it shows that Hawkins has complete faith in his fortune-telling capabilities to the point where whenever his cards tell him that he's not going to die today, he could walk, like, blindfolded into a volcano and he would be fine. You know, like, it's how he views the world. I guess they're accurate enough for him to be like, I'm facing down a Navy High Admiral. Like, no, seriously, a Navy High Admiral, and he has the ability to, you know, send out speed of light attacks and everything. Like, I should be freaking out. I should be, you know, under a cold sweat right now and scrambling trying to get out of here, but just sitting on this park bench or this fountain and just talking to him, and according to my cards, I'm gonna be fine. I won't die today, so everything will be all right. So, you know, and so he gets knocked back, and his ability takes over, where he has these voodoo dolls on him. I guess he has 10 of them, and I guess what he does, and I've already done a video about Basil Hawkins' Devil Fruit. We don't know the name of it, but we can assume it's either Paramecia or Mythical Zone. I'm more in the ballpark of it being a Paramecia, though. And he can somehow select individuals. I guess maybe he can touch them, or maybe he needs to perform perform some kind of ritual or something, but he can select individuals to basically be his extra lives. So whenever he gets kicked into the face, he's not the one that actually dies. It's the other people that he randomly selected all throughout the island, just random civilians on Sabaody that just immediately burst into flames or get holes riddled through them and they pass out and they die. And then Hawkins, the voodoo dolls that had their extra lives, they disintegrate. So he can still die, it's just a little bit harder to kill him. And having extra lives is fairly useful in the One Piece world, although there's a lot of opponents that having extra lives wouldn't matter. If Kizaru was just a little bit more proactive in taking out Hawkins, he could finish him off really no problem, and he almost does. There's a scene where Kizaru has Hawkins dead to rights, and he's just unloading lasers into his body, and that's when he mentions, like, well, you have a solid form, so you're not a Logia, and you have extra lives, but I can just unload into you like boom, boom, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I can keep this up all day, bro, you know, and eventually all of his crewmates start freaking out, like, oh my god, he's losing all of his extra lives. All the voodoo dolls start climbing out of him, they start disintegrating. He probably has an upper limit of maybe about 10, maybe the limit has increased since the time skip of bodies he can make. He can't just make like 1,000 extra lives. It probably doesn't work like that. Also the fact that he took the time to select random civilians on Sabaody. You'd think that is a little odd. Maybe they have to be in a certain vicinity of him to actually work. I don't think it might be like Moria's fruit, the Kage no Mi. He could steal somebody's shadow, and then they could travel to the other side of the world, but their shadows is still stolen. Maybe it's something like that, or maybe it's like you have to be on the same island as Hawkins for the extra life thing to work. But yeah, so he can still be injured, and it's also not even like every type of injury he receives gets carried over to the voodoo dolls. Kizaru was able to blind him, and it's not like he could pass on the blindness to somebody else. It's like he really did get blinded. So I think it really just comes down to mortal injuries. Maybe he can choose something really minor, like if he gets a paper cut or something, he can choose to use a voodoo doll for that, but it would be stupid. So instead he keeps them just for mortal injuries when he's going to die, and then they get, that they save him essentially there. Like I said, I did a whole video about that, so you can go check that out up here. So after the events on Sabaody, after he gets saved, basically, just good timing, because Sentomaru comes in contact with Kizaru right at the worst time there, and you had also Apu that helped out to distract Kizaru. But yeah, those supernovas would have been pretty much dead if it wasn't for Sentomaru getting access to Kizaru, and Kizaru's like, oh, okay, I better go after Luffy now, because he's the one that actually punched Charlos. So they get saved, they leave. There's a funny scene at the end of the war when he's hanging out and he's doing his tarot card readings at the war, and he mentions something interesting. He says, no matter how much I try to calculate it out, no matter how many times I dice the cards, I lay them out or whatever, I arrange them, Straw Hat Luffy's his life refuses to reach 0. There's no way I can calculate my fortune telling to the point where Luffy's gonna die, or his willpower reaches 0% or anything like that. He's an anomaly. He's weird, basically. Like such a strong life force is emanating from Luffy that no matter how I dice it, it just doesn't seem like he could die, which is very, very interesting for what we might see later on in the story. Maybe the essence of the Will of D, maybe if Hawkins tried that for Dragon or for Blackbeard, it would also kind of come up in a similar way. Let's talk about tarot cards really quick, just because I spent the time to learn about them, I might as well bring them up. And it's like, I'm not someone that was really interested in this to begin with, but I'm a kind of guy that I like to learn as much stuff as I can. My philosophy on life is that there shouldn't be any kind of forbidden knowledge or anything like that. I'm not even religious, I'm an atheist, but I still study religions and various myths all the time. It's just something that I like to do. I just like to learn as much as I can. So, I was like, all right, even, just for the sake of a video, but also I've always been kind of fascinated by the tarot, mostly just because there are a lot of pretty cards, so I was like, I want to find out what they are. And so just a few things I found, just major misconceptions about the craft, I guess, is that the one thing that I see that's a trope all the time, not just in anime, not just in manga, but video games, movies, movies, cartoons, I think we've always seen like some fortune teller or gypsy or someone that's giving someone a reading, and then, you know, in the context of the movie, you know, the main character messed with a ghost or something, and fortune tellers do is like, oh, let's see what you have here, yes, and then they pull out the freaking death card, and it's like, oh, you're gonna die, you know, and the main character's like, oh, it's a movie, you know, it's just dramatic effect, it's the death card, you know, and it's usually a picture of a, well, in this case, you know, you have the skeleton up there as a knight riding on a horse, elevating him in some sense. That probably doesn't mean anything. But no, the death card does not mean straight up, you gonna die! You gonna die tomorrow! You know? That's not what it indicates. You know, it can indicate, change, for one thing. You know, and that's something else interesting that I mentioned. The second thing is that not all these cards just mean, like, one thing. You know, it's not like, the Chariot, for instance. The Chariot represents, you know, someone on a journey, you know, maybe that you felt stagnated in one place and you have to go on either just a physical journey or a spiritual journey or something like that, and all that kind of stuff. But that's not the only thing it indicates. It's not like, you know, you flip over the Chariot instantly, oh, that means you're going on a journey. 100%. That's what it means. Get in your car, start driving. You know, these are really kind of open to interpretation. There's so many different interpretations depending on who you are as a person, what's going on in your life, and the kind of cards that you pull, okay, when you're doing a reading. So, yeah, that's basically the major gist of it, if we just want to give you really quick. The death card doesn't mean you gonna die, and not every card has, like, a strict, you know, like, here's the bullet points, 1, 2, 3, this is what that card means. No, it's very much open to interpretation. Now, in the anime, we do get to see him pull the death card, and it's used in that very cliche way of just, ooh, bad shit's gonna go down, it's an omen. Not necessarily, but then it's for theatrics, you know, it's the image of pulling a card with the Grim Reaper sharpening his fucking scythe and just like, you know, and it's Death 13, so you think, oh, 13's also an unlucky number, so that's how that goes there. But that wasn't in the manga, and in the manga, I don't even think it's been expressly stated they were tarot cards, but they basically are. Oda drew a child portrait of Hawkins when he was a little tyke, and we see him apparently laying out the tarot cards and doing a reading, so yeah, they're tarot cards, okay? So I really kind of hope that maybe aspect of his character takes on a whole new, like, realization, maybe in combat. I'm not saying he turns into, like, Hisoka from Hunter x Hunter, where he takes out his cards and he starts flinging them like freaking batarangs or whatever, but I would like to see him utilize this skill, you know, like maybe he rejoins, you know, because Kid is in prison right now, Apu is working for Kaido, Hawkins, they were doing that, you know, that meeting, that alliance, and then Kaido shows up and wrecks everything. I would assume that Hawkins is probably working for Kaido as well, maybe behind the scenes, like maybe one of, you know, I don't think the Supernovas like Apu are actually just going to be dedicated to Kaido. If, from what we saw with Mage is any indication, they want to become the rulers of the sea. They have that kind of ambition, right? So I don't think it's going to go down where Apu or Hawkins are just going to be happy with, you know, oh yes, we're working for Master Kaido and that's all we need to do. They want to fight back, it's just they know when they're beat. Hawkins probably especially just does a quick reading after Kaido crashes down from a freaking sky. Didn't predict that, did ya? Breaks out his cards, he's like, okay, chance of defeat, 1,000,000%. Chance of winning, LOL, okay. Chance of evasion, ha ha ha. And chance that you are going to be a bitch boy for the next few weeks, 100%. Alright, I think I'll be in Lord Kaido-sama, you know? Hawkins probably saw the writing on the wall as soon as Kaido crashed down, like, don't even bother. Don't even bother trying to fight him. He might have not even busted out the cards. He's like, well, let me calculate. Oh, you're really big. Okay. Yeah. Okay, as for Kid, he's just really direct. He's just like, screw you, I'm not working for you, I'm attacking, bah! And then he just got the shit beat out of him and thrown into a jail cell. Apu and Hawkins are maybe a little bit more tactical about how this is going to go down. So, if we're just going to go along the lines that Apu and Hawkins and Kid, they're all, and Killer as well, they're all in Wano, when the Straw Hats show up, there might be some other kind of alliance for them to try to take down Kaido. X-Drake might be there too. Last time we saw X-Drake, he was on that other winter island, but that might be adjacent to Wano. We don't know. So they might be there, and we might see Hawkins bust out his tarot readings for the Straw Hat crew or something like, okay, this is the chance of you. Like, that would actually be a really cool ability. Like, they're all figuring out who to fight. Like, they got the Calamities there. You have the Shogun. You probably have the Shogun's loyal retainers, the Samurai, and they're trying to figure out who to fight who. And then Hawkins breaks out his tarot cards like, okay, Zoro, Frankie, you guys are the most suited to fight against this samurai. Kinemon, Kanjuro, Raizo, you need to fight against this person. This person needs to fight against, like, he'll figure out, like, which is the best option. And then Luffy will be undoubtedly the one to mess it all up. Luffy will be the one, like, Luffy, you have a 10% chance to fight against this guy, but you have a 50% chance to win against this guy, so you better fight against, screw you, I'm fighting Kaido! Like, like, what? Damn it, Luffy. But yeah, that's probably that would be a cool way to see that go down there. I kind of skipped over one thing, and that's when he confronted Brownbeard, which, yeah, we all care about. Yeah, Brownbeard, the most nefarious villain in all of One Piece. But yeah, after he gets into the New World, he confronts Brownbeard over at Food Vault, and which is a previous settlement that was, controlled by Whitebeard, and then Brownbeard took over for a whole 2 days, and then, Hawkins showed up, beat the crap. I mean, he really beat the crap out of Brownbeard. He turned him into a freaking paraplegic. He ruined his legs. So yeah, Hawkins, you don't mess with Hawkins. He's a pretty chill guy most days. And he doesn't seem to be one for confrontation. Even when they were at Sabaody, one of his men got spaghetti spilled on them, and Hawkins is just reading his cards like, such is the fate of your pants, nothing we can do here. But come on, Captain, let me beat the shit out of him. No, that was just bound to happen. Now come, let's go get a plate of pasta. Like, that's what he did. But I guess in that situation, he's like, no, I'm gonna wreck your shit today, Brownbeard. And then he has a sword he also carries with him. Don't get to see him use it all that much, but he has a sword. Breaks out that, activates Gummo no Sol, and he goes to attack Brownbeard. So yeah, and then after that, last time we saw him was at the Alliance, and then Kaido busts down, and he's probably at Wano right now. So that's the situation there with Hawkins. He's the only one that we don't know anything about right now. Kid we know, and Apu we know, but Hawkins, no, so that's the case. The situation with his crew, they all have a very interesting design, the aesthetic of like kind of an old school 80s rock band, kind of a little bit on the same level as Kid, which now I understand kind of why they're working together, although his are more of like a cultic, the hoods and everything like that. He has a mink on his crew named Faust, which the Faustian deal, selling your soul to the devil for power or intelligence or riches or something. Keep an eye on Faust. He might betray them at some point. I mean, when you name your character Faust, I mean, what the hell do you think's going to happen, And also, referring to music references, you might notice his appearance is very similar to Joey Jordison, who was in the band Slipknot. He's kind of pale, he's got the marks above his eyes that look like nails, he's got this kind of like cross thing tattooed on his neck, so that's his basic for his design, so that's a pretty interesting thing there. One more thing about his cards, his fortune-telling reading, I forgot to bring up, is while he can calculate out the percentages for attack, defense, evasion, if he's gonna live or die, he can't predict every little detail, so he doesn't know like whether or not like an ability that a character is going to use against him. He doesn't know that stuff. He doesn't know if a character is going to use a devil fruit or he's going to bust out hockey or a gun or a sword. All he can predict is, the general percentages of the outcome. Like when he saw Rouge fight against one of the pacifistas, he mentions to Rouge, you seem to be pretty beaten down, and at death's door, you seem to be, but I don't see the shadow of death on you, so I don't think you're going to die today. And then Rouge turns into his divine retribution, and it seemed Hawkins was kind of surprised by that, so he's not like he could see the future like an observation hockey specialist could, like Katakuri or Luffy could now. But yeah, he can sense probability and everything. So that's pretty much all I got from Hawkins. Like I said, I hope to see him again in Wano and fight against even if he's completely allied with Kaido, even if he took out his cards, saw the writing on the wall, there's no way out of this. It's either ally with Kaido or I'm dead. We could at least see him get into a fight with one of the samurai like Kinemon or Kanjuro or Ninja Raizo or one of the Straw Hats. I just want to see Hawkins in action. I just want to see him because I want to see what the name of his devil fruit is. I want to know what kind of devil fruit it is. you know, and like the full scope of his fortune telling, how he could implement that while in the midst of battle. I mean, fighting against Kizaru, that wasn't really fair because Kizaru was such a high level character at that point compared to him. But, you know, Hawkins fighting up against like Kinemon or somebody, like that would be a cool fight, like to see how that goes. They both use swords, and maybe he could use his fortune telling to determine like how he could win or stuff. I mean, I think there's a lot of options here with Hawkins that Oda has, like a lot of openings here. I mean, maybe he just doesn't want to go too much into JoJo territory here, but yeah, that's the situation. So yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. This will be Tekking101 signing out. Next video will be after the arc is over. I have no idea when that'll be, although I think it'll be ending rather shortly, maybe in the next few chapters. Chapter 900 seems to be the general consensus, but after Tauntland arc is over, then I will begin to do Mage's video, which is the last of the Supernovas. Then after that, I'm thinking about maybe going to the Grand Fleet. I think that's the best option, Grand Fleet. So yeah, this is the Ace of Swords. I don't know. Looks cool.